Let's start by telling the truth, even when it stings. We all crave connection. We're wired for it. But not every relationship in our lives is built on mutual respect or emotional safety. Sometimes someone we care about, a friend, a partner, a family member, harbors resentment, judgment, or even quiet contempt, and it hurts. It's hard to talk about this. We'd rather look away, rationalize it, or convince ourselves we're imagining things. Because acknowledging the possibility that someone close to us might secretly hate us, that's a kind of heartbreak no one volunteers for. But ignoring it doesn't make it go away, and being brave enough to name it. That's how we reclaim our power and our peace. Now, when I talk about someone secretly hating you, I'm not talking about cartoon villains style hatred. It's rarely that dramatic. It's more often a slow drip of passive aggression, withdrawal, or subtle emotional punishment that wears you down. And here's the vulnerable truth. Recognizing these signs takes courage. Because when you notice them, you also have to ask yourself what boundaries need to be set, and whether this relationship is worth salvaging. One of the most revealing signs that someone close to you may harbor resentment or hidden dislike is how they respond to your wins. And I'm not just talking about the big ones, the promotions, the engagement, the graduation. I'm talking about the small, everyday victories too, starting a new project, setting a boundary for the first time, choosing to take care of your mental health, the kind of moments that require vulnerability, courage, and growth. When you share these moments with someone you care about, you're extending an invitation. See me, celebrate with me, join me in this joy. But instead of celebration, you're met with a shrug, a joke, a sarcastic must be nice, or worse, silence. It's not always overt. Sometimes it's a little eye roll, a quiet change of subject, a strange tension in the air, like your joy somehow inconveniences them. You walk away from the interaction feeling a bit smaller, a bit unsure, like maybe you're being too much, like maybe you shouldn't have shared at all. This isn't just about a lack of enthusiasm. It's about emotional dissonance. Because when someone loves you, they want to see you win. They find joy in your joy, even if they're struggling. They don't need to outshine you, up you, or quietly root for your fall. They don't confuse your growth with their loss. But someone who secretly resents you, they can't, or won't, let your light shine too brightly, because your success reminds them of their stuckness. Your happiness threatens their narrative of how things should be. And instead of dealing with that pain honestly, they turn it inward, then project it outward. They might say things like, "Don't let it go to your head. Must be nice when you don't have real problems. Oh, so now you're better than the rest of us." And each time it happens, a small part of you wonders if maybe you are being arrogant, maybe you are making too big a deal of things. But deep down, what's really happening is emotional sabotage dressed up as banter, or silence pretending to be humility. Let me be clear, someone who loves you might not always get it right. We're all human. We all have moments of envy, insecurity, or emotional fatigue. But the difference is in the repair. The difference is in the willingness to say, "I'm sorry I wasn't more present for you. I was caught up in my own stuff." But if someone consistently minimizes your achievements, dampens your enthusiasm, or refuses to acknowledge your growth, it's not a one-off, it's a pattern. And patterns matter. You are allowed to shine. You are allowed to take up space. And you deserve to be surrounded by people who cheer you on, not because they need something from you, but because they see your light and love you more for it. Let's talk about boundaries, those invisible yet powerful lines that define where you end and someone else begins. They're not walls, they're not ultimatums, they're acts of self-respect. Boundaries are how we protect our time, our energy, our emotional safety. And setting them is never easy, especially with people we love. But the real test isn't whether you set a boundary, it's how someone responds to it. When someone close to you secretly harbors resentment, contempt, or unspoken hostility, One of the first places it shows up is in how they handle your boundaries, or more accurately, how they don't. You say, "I can't talk right now," and they call anyway. You say, "I don't feel comfortable with that," and they laugh it off. You say, "Please don't bring that up around others," and they do again. You express that something hurt your feelings, and they accuse you of being too sensitive or overreacting. This isn't miscommunication. It's a pattern of disregard, and let's be clear, everyone slips sometimes, we're human, but when someone truly cares for you, they adjust, they take your words seriously, they may not understand your boundary right away, but they respect your right to have it. Someone who secretly hates you doesn't adjust. They test your limits, over and over. They might do it with a smile, with a joke, with phrases like, "You've changed," "You used to be more fun," "I can't believe you're making a big deal out of this." But make no mistake, what they're really saying is, "Your needs are inconvenient to me." Over time, this erodes your sense of self. You start to question your own instincts. You wonder if your boundaries are unreasonable. You shrink, you over-explain, you let things slide just to keep the peace. That is not love, that is not friendship, that is not care. Someone who truly loves you may be confused by your boundary, but they won't resent you for having it. They won't retaliate with guilt trips or passive aggression. They'll say, "Okay, thanks for telling me." Maybe not perfectly, maybe not immediately, but eventually, lovingly, respectfully. When someone repeatedly disregards your no, your discomfort, or your requests for space, they are showing you loud and clear that your well-being is not their priority, and that's not just inconsiderate, it's toxic. You deserve relationships where your boundaries are not viewed as threats, but as invitations to build deeper trust, safety, and understanding. Setting boundaries is hard. Enforcing them can be harder. But nothing is more painful than staying close to someone who refuses to honor them. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not too much for asking to be treated with care. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if that means stepping away from someone who never truly chose you. Let's pause for a moment and honor what vulnerability really is. It's not weakness. It's not oversharing. It's not fragility. Vulnerability is courage in motion. It's what happens when we show up fully as ourselves, flawed, open, and unarmored, in a world that often tells us to hide, to harden, or to be fine when we're not. When we share something tender, an insecurity, a wound, a story we've never said out loud, we're offering someone a key to the most sacred part of us. And with that key comes responsibility, trust, emotional stewardship. Now, think of someone in your life you've let close, someone you've shared the real stuff with. Maybe you told them about the way you still carry shame from childhood. Maybe you confided in them during a heartbreak, a trauma, a moment of deep fear or confusion. You let them see behind the mask, and at first maybe it felt safe, maybe it felt like love, but somewhere along the way the air changed. What you shared in confidence now resurfaces, but not with care. Not with kindness. It comes back in the form of a joke at your expense, a pointed comment during an argument, a subtle dig in front of others. Maybe they mock the very thing you were once brave enough to admit. They say things like, "Well, you're always the anxious one, aren't you? No wonder no one takes you seriously. Maybe you should go cry about it like you usually do." And when you flinch or call it out, they dismiss it. "I'm just kidding. Don't be so sensitive." Wow, you really can't take a joke, can you? This right here is emotional betrayal, because when someone uses your vulnerability against you, whether to win an argument, to elevate themselves, or to belittle you in front of others, they are telling you, "Your pain is ammunition to me." And let's be clear, that is not love. That is cruelty disguised as connection. People who truly love you protect your vulnerability. They don't just listen. They hold space. They treat your wounds with reverence, not ridicule. They never use your rawness as leverage. When someone weaponizes your openness, you begin to feel unsafe in your own skin. You start hiding again, editing yourself. You pull back, not because you're cold or distant, but because deep down you're trying to survive in an environment that punishes your authenticity, and over time this chips away at your sense of worth. You stop sharing, you second, guess your feelings, you wonder if maybe you were too honest, too exposed, too much. Let me tell you something you may need to hear today. You were never too much, you were honest. You were real, you were brave, but someone who secretly resents or hates you will not see your bravery as beauty. They'll see it as something to exploit. And when that happens, it's not your job to become smaller or tougher. It's your job to recognize what's happening and decide what kind of love you're willing to accept. True intimacy is built on emotional safety. Without that, there's no real connection, only performance, silence, and fear. So if your vulnerability is being used as a weapon, know this. You have the right to protect yourself, to walk away, to find people who hold your heart with gentleness, not judgment. Because you deserve to be loved for the very parts of you that someone else tried to shame. Let's talk about one of the most painful kinds of betrayal, the kind that doesn't come with slamming doors or harsh words, but with silence, absence, and a quiet hope that things don't work out for you. This one is hard to spot. It hides behind polite smiles, forced congratulations, and phrases like, "I'm happy for you," that feel just a little off. You sense something underneath, something heavy, unsaid, and cold. There's no outright sabotage, no confrontation, just apathy, a lack of joy in your joy, or sometimes an invisible thread of satisfaction when you stumble. You begin to notice they seem more engaged when you're struggling, more available when you're low, more talkative when you're hurting. When things are going well for you, they withdraw, they downplay it, or worse, they go quiet altogether. This is what it looks like when someone quietly roots for your failure. They might not say it outright, but the energy is unmistakable. You feel like you're being tolerated, not celebrated, and when you're honest with yourself, their support has always felt conditional. When you're on the ground, they're there with a hand, but when you rise, when you stretch toward your potential, they back away, or they start making subtle comments meant to bring you back down. You've changed. Don't forget where you came from. Must be nice having it all figured out. It's not about concern. It's not feedback. It's envy wrapped in false humility. And here's the hard truth. People who secretly hate you aren't always loud about it. Sometimes they're in your inner circle. Sometimes they're the ones who smile in pictures with you, who say all the right things, but who are quietly hoping life humbles you just enough to make them feel better about where they are. And it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's coming from deep insecurity, from the belief that your success means less for them, that your happiness is a spotlight on their lack of it. But here's the thing, it is not your job to shrink so someone else can feel safe. When someone loves you, your success is their success. Your light doesn't blind them, it warms them. They show up in your joy, not just your pain. They don't need you to fail in order to feel whole. It's okay to outgrow the spaces that can't hold your growth. It's okay to acknowledge that someone's silence in your season of blossoming says something, even if they never put it into words. And it's okay to walk away from people who are only rooting for the version of you that stays small, stuck, and second. Guessing herself. We all deserve relationships where we can win out loud, where we don't have to make ourselves palatable or quieter or less lucky, just to be loved. You deserve people who clap when you win, people who don't feel threatened by your rise, people who don't secretly hope you fall just so they can feel taller, because that isn't connection, that isn't friendship. That isn't love, it's ego, it's envy, and it has no place in a relationship built on mutual respect. So listen to the silences, watch who celebrates you, not just when you're broken, but when you're becoming whole. Let's talk about the slow, silent erosion of emotional safety, passive aggression. Unlike open conflict, passive-aggressive behavior rarely announces itself. It sneaks in through sarcasm, avoidance, and little emotional jabs dressed up as just jokes. And when it comes from someone close to you, it can leave you second, guessing not only the relationship, but yourself. At its core, passive aggression is a form of indirect hostility. It's what people do when they have resentment or anger they won't, or can't, express honestly. So instead of saying, "I'm upset," or "I feel hurt," they communicate it through cold shoulders, sarcastic remarks, backhanded compliments, or a vibe so thick you can feel it the moment they walk into the room. You might hear things like, "I guess I just care more about being on time than some people." "Wow, must be nice to have that kind of free time." "Don't worry, I didn't expect you to show up anyway." And every time you try to address it directly, you're met with denial. "I'm fine." "You're reading too much into it." "You're so sensitive, I was joking." This pattern leaves you confused and emotionally off balance. It's not overt enough to call out without sounding dramatic, but it's constant enough that you start to feel small, anxious, or exhausted around them. That's because passive aggression is gaslighting in slow motion. It erodes your reality by denying what you're clearly experiencing. People who love you don't make you decode their moods. They don't punish you with silence, guilt, or low-grade hostility when they're upset. They don't expect you to be a mind reader, and they don't use sarcasm as a weapon disguised as wit. When someone secretly resents or dislikes you, they rarely come out and say it. But their behavior speaks volumes. They might show up late to plans, cancel last minute, or act like spending time with you is a burden. They may forget things that are important to you. They joke about your flaws but never offer sincere praise. They withdraw emotionally while staying just close enough to avoid accountability. And you begin to feel like you're always on trial, always managing their mood, always waiting for the next dig, sigh, or snide remark. Here's what I want you to know. Your nervous system is not lying to you. When you walk away from an interaction feeling drained, uneasy, or small, it's worth paying attention to. You are not too sensitive for noticing the undercurrent of disrespect. You are aware, and awareness is a gift. In healthy relationships, communication may be hard, but it's honest. Disagreements are navigated with care, not with contempt. And when someone is upset, they tell you openly, kindly, directly. Passive-aggressive behavior isn't just frustrating. It's a form of emotional manipulation, and when it becomes a pattern, it's no longer about poor communication skills. It's about power. It's about control. It's about saying, "I don't respect you enough to be real with you. You deserve real. You deserve respect. You deserve to be in relationships where honesty is not only allowed, it's welcomed, where you don't have to translate tone, parse sarcasm, or walk on eggshells to keep things calm." Because love without safety is just performance, and connection without respect is just proximity. You are allowed to step back from people who won't meet you in honesty. There's a particular kind of loneliness that cuts deeper than being alone. It's the loneliness you feel when someone is right next to you, but no longer with you. They show up, they reply. They're at the dinner table, in the group chat, maybe even sharing your bed. But their presence is hollow, distant, mechanical, like they've emotionally checked out and left a shell behind, and the saddest part, you feel it, but you can't quite name it. This is what it looks like when someone withdraws emotionally but remains physically present. They might not miss your birthday. They might still show up to your big events. They'll laugh at the jokes, smile in the photos, go through all the motions, but underneath there's a chill, their warmth is gone. Their eyes are glazed, conversations are shallow, scripted. There's no depth, no curiosity, no reach toward you anymore. You start noticing the shift in small, aching ways. They don't ask how your day really was. They stop sharing the things they used to. No more late night talks, no more inside jokes. You catch them staring past you during conversations, nodding without listening. They're quick to change the subject when things get emotional or meaningful. It's like you're trying to connect through a wall made of silence and politeness, and when you finally muster the courage to ask, "Is something wrong?" they shrug and say, "I'm just tired," or "It's nothing." But deep down, you know it is something. You can feel the space between you growing wider, and that invisible distance, while they're still sitting across from you, feels heavier than absence ever could. Here's the painful truth: people who secretly dislike or resent you often won't leave. Because staying gives them the upper hand. It lets them maintain the image of closeness while depriving you of actual connection. It's a subtle form of emotional punishment, being present enough to avoid blame, but distant enough to let you know you're no longer safe in their heart. Why does this hurt so much? Because human beings are wired for emotional attunement. We don't just want people near us. We want to feel felt, to be seen, heard, known. When someone withdraws emotionally, it sends a message loud and clear. I've stopped choosing you, but I'm still here, so it must be you, not me. That kind of gaslighting, intentional or not, can make you question your worth. You start working harder for scraps of affection. You over-explain, over-apologize, over-function. You convince yourself you're imagining things, but you're not. You're recognizing disconnection dressed in obligation. And I need you to hear this. You deserve real connection. You deserve presence, not just in body, but in spirit. Someone who leans in when you speak. Someone who wants to know how you're doing. Someone who doesn't disappear the moment things get hard or emotional. Emotional withdrawal is not love. It's not maturity, and it's not just how people are. It's a sign that something's broken. And if the other person won't name it or fix it, you are not required to suffer in silence to preserve the illusion of closeness. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing connection with someone who already let go quietly, passively, without saying goodbye. You are worthy of relationships where presence means something. Where showing up isn't just about being seen, it's about being met. Sometimes the most painful truths are the quietest. They don't come in the form of betrayal you can point at. They don't come with shouting or slammed doors. They come in the slow drip of disrespect, the cold stare across a dinner table, the silence where care used to live. They come in sarcasm, in withdrawn affection, in smiles that don't quite reach the eyes. When someone close to you secretly resents or even hates you, it doesn't always show up in ways the world would recognize. It shows up in the ways you have to talk yourself out of your own intuition. In the way your body tenses around them. In the exhaustion of pretending that things are fine when your soul knows they're not. But you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not imagining it. You're just finally listening to yourself. This isn't about vilifying others. It's about choosing honesty, about naming what's real, so you can stop begging for crumbs of kindness from people who are no longer offering it freely. It's about realizing that loyalty to others should never come at the cost of betrayal to yourself. So if you've seen these signs, if you've felt that shift, that ache, that erosion, this is your permission slip. Not to confront, not to retaliate, but to choose yourself. To create space between you and the people who diminish your joy, cross your boundaries, mock your vulnerability, cheer for your losses, lace their language with poison, or withhold their heart while staying in your life. You deserve real connection, honest, kind, loving connection. The kind that honors your boundaries, holds your pain with care, celebrates your wins with joy, and shows up with a full heart, not just a full schedule. Anything less than that is not a relationship. It's a performance, and you were not born to live your life on a stage for someone else's comfort. You were born to live loved, fully, deeply, and without apology. Choose that, even if it means letting go of what looks like love, but never truly felt like it.